Zach?
Gonna need it over there.
Ah, she's booked some stuff.
Anyway, I'm going to call you guys on the
Yeah, there you go. Then. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Have you got? You've still got the same email address. Yeah, yeah. Okay, fine.
You were going to
No, no, good. No, please sit there. Excellent.
If you can, grab a seat, please. Grab a seat. Because we've got a few late comers who will gravitate to the back.
And you're going to be okay.
If you can, please grab a seat.
You're a funny guy, Chris.
Dominic, don't be shy.
You think I was joking?
Can you hear me? Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Inspired Leaders Network, the first event of 2018. We're asking one simple question. What are you great at? Tonight's going to be about the strengths-based revolution. From the moment you entered school, everyone wanted to know, what are you not so good at? Where are your efforts going to be focused? When you enter the workplace, the obsession is what you're not so good at. I'd like you to reorientate yourselves. Everybody in this room has a massive, standout, inherent strength. How different would the world be if from day one we only focused on our strengths? How many of you have ever been invisible? How many of you have gone into work and no one's noticed you? How many of you spent your life where your voice is never heard? Your contribution is taken for granted. You become the employee number. And when you do walk in, people see the things you're not so good at, your limitations, your weaknesses, your areas for improvement, your areas for development. So many of us are the workforce. Sometimes they don't even know our first name. How many of you have ever been invisible? Visibility. If I can't see you. Johnny goes to school for the first time at the 4 years of age. For the first parent teachers even. It says, Johnny's not so spelling classes. How different would it be if they said, Johnny's fantastic at arithmetic. We're going to give him 4 extra arithmetic classes. We change the world. We can change the world if we recalibrate and saw people for what they're brilliant at. Everyone becomes someone. Everyone has a voice and no one's invisible. I've got a fantastic panel for you today. But just before we start, Zach.
And a crucial period. You do not determine which, whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. And I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint. Number one, in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Secondly, in your life's blueprint, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. be deciding as the days and the years unfold what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. Once you discover what it will be, set out to do it, and to do it well. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. Or is it by signs that you win or you fail? Be the best of whatever you are. Finally, in your life's blueprint must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. Well, life for none of us has been a crystal staff. We must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
Guess what his spike is? The communicator extraordinaire. Not everyone can be a fabulous communicator, but everyone in this room can be fantastic at one or two things. Let's worry less about what we're not so good at. Zach. So
the me.talent scan is incredibly effective and efficient. It can be done 10 minutes online or just through a normal 1-hour coaching session. It's powerful, it's revealing, and it's fun. But don't just take my word for it. Here's some people that have had their me.talent scan done, and Luke is one of them.
Yeah, it was incredibly insightful.
Doing the scan gave me real confidence to use my strength and reach for those new opportunities.
I took the me scan back in August 2017. I was very pleasantly surprised with the level of insight that it provided me, particularly in highlighting some of my blind spots.
I really thought the talent scan helped me identify my strengths and develop them further. This was really useful as right now I'm in exam period, so to know how best to revise is really, really key for me.
The Me Talent Scan was amazing. It helped change my life both personally and professionally. It's made me so much more aware of where I'm going and what I'm doing in life.
It's given some feedback on the talent profile because it is done from a position of you choosing and sensing the things that are important to you. I think it takes out a lot of bias. So I was really pleasantly surprised by the profile report that came out afterwards. And in particular, the one thing that probably struck me more than anything was it was the most accurate reflection of my pitfalls. So, i.e. the sort of areas that may be impacting my development and my performance that are not that obvious to me. So it's given me some really tangible things.
MeScan has really got under the skin of how we can maximise our strengths as a leadership team. Come on!
So, one of our guest panellists, Peter, this is his organisation. I bumped into Peter. We're wanting to find out, is there a really rapid and quick way of assessing someone's strengths? Not some sort of 6-month journey, data-driven. Is there a really snappy quick way? Peter has that solution. With a team that's been successful doing it for a number of years, please give Peter a warm Inspired Leaders welcome. Peter, come and join us. Secondly, it gives me great pleasure for a very good friend and soulmate of mine who has a new book out, The Strengths Book, which for those of you quick off the mark will be on a one-off sale offer outside at the break, but limited edition. Sally Bibb is a soulmate of mine. We've been talking, challenging each other about the strengths-based revolution for some time. She runs a fantastic consulting business that if you want to take your team, your business on this transformational journey, look no further. Give Sally a big round. And finally, he needs no introduction, is our resident academic, Professor Chris Brady, who has come in all the way from Salford today. Please give him a round. Come and join us. So we want to talk about strengths. We want to talk about the implications of the strength-based revolution. Sally, kick me off. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how strengths came to you.
So my story is really a story of two parts. When I was in my 20s, I was very lucky to get one of my first jobs as a graduate that I absolutely loved. Jumped out of bed in the morning, couldn't wait to get to work. It was fantastic. I did so well that I was promoted. The problem was I was promoted into a job that was completely and utterly wrong for me. I was a square peg in a round hole. My confidence took a dive. My boss was disappointed. You can see how the story plays out. And I don't know how many of you in this room have ever been in the wrong job. Miserable experience, isn't it? From that moment when I was in my 20s, I got a bee in my bonnet about why can't organisations do this well. I was working for a big global organisation, impressive ways of selecting people, and they got it wrong. Roll forward several years, and we've now worked with many organisations, prisons, hospitals, retail sector, finance sector, business, public sector, you name it, people are people. We've introduced strengths-based recruitment, selection, performance management, development for these organisations. It changes these organisations, saves them money, of course they're interested in that, but it transforms lives.
Is it hard to get organisations to understand the benefits of what you're trying to?
No. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, saving money, improving customer service, improving productivity. The data is coming out of our ears.
So why have we got more of them embracing this?
Well, I think there's one answer to that question, and I think it's down to leadership. When I meet chief execs, chief nurses, whoever they are, all of them say, the numbers speak for themselves, this is a no-brainer. But it's the ones who say things like, intuitively this makes sense, this goes with the grain of the human spirit, emotionally this makes sense. Those are the people that I know are going to come on the journey because they get it here as well as here.
Very, very good. Lisa, what's your story? When did you hit strengths?
I hit strength, I think, 10 years ago as a tax lawyer, busy with a lot of change management and change processes. I noticed that it's hard to change a team or a company developing at the next level, and finding a way to help people make that change was a difficult one, because if you look at their behavior, it's hard to really get a lean on how you can help them. So I was looking for an instrument and found a very basic version predecessor of the tool we use, the Nieuwburg talent scan, which was surprisingly clear, and it was quite primitive at that moment. So I stepped in the company which was just going to market with that. Trained myself, left my tax law, which was a job which was not mine, to be frank.
How could you leave doing tax law?
You could have been an actuary.
People love it.
So this was much more fun, and it was very concise. So we built the scan we use to the next level, helping people, helping teams, helping companies to be much more clear and concise on their development potential. One of the speakers in the short video said it made a clear vision or view on my pitfalls. And pitfalls are not a bad thing, but they can block a part of your development, but it's also the fire behind behavior. So it's a very quick way to get a real view on people.
Chris?
Yes?
Glad to see you're alert and with us today. Give us a view.
I think the interesting point is that I think 99% of people in the world are in the wrong job, and I think that's the key. That's the key of how you sort of end up. To me, I ended up where I ended up by mistake, effectively. And I can remember the moment we were only talking about this recently. My wife and I can remember the moment. I was about mid-20s. I already had young children, and I was working in an outdoor job. It was freezing cold. It was in the middle of the winter, and I was walking up to put equipment away, and I saw the office there, and the lights were on, and everybody had shirts on, and there were ladies there, and there was also, and I thought, well, what's going on there? Why am I out here freezing cold, and why are they in there warm and laughing? People are laughing in there. What's going on in there? So I went in there, and it was the engineer's office, and I said, how did you get to be these engineers things? And they said, well, you've got to get a degree first. You think I'm joking now? Listen, I'm not joking, right? You I'm talking to. I'm not joking now, because she thinks I'm joking all the time. I said, what's these degree things? How'd you get one of them then? And they said, well, you need to get these A-level things. And I go, well, what's that then, exactly? And they said, well, you've got to go to a college. And so I went, this is all true. I went to the local technical college. I said, I want one of these A-level things. I need a couple of them, apparently. What do I need to do? And the guy said, well, you need to do this, this and this. I said, okay. So I went off and did 2 A-level. This is how stupid I was, by the way. I came back and said, I've got the A-level things now. How can I go to university now? And he said, you missed it by a year. He said, because in those days you used to have to apply before you got your results. I couldn't understand. How do you apply before you get your results? How does that work? You know, surely you have to, no, you predict your results. I'm like, what? Really? So I missed a year. So now I'm 26, you know, wife, children, everything. So I go to university, and I got to university and I thought, this is for me. I want to do this learning thing. And once I've done it, I want to help other people to learn. That's what I want to do, and, you know, and I want to coach, and I want to do this sort of stuff. And when we're looking at coaches now, when we're really working with coaches now, the first question I ask them, you know, what really gives you a buzz? And depending on what they say, if they say, it was great, I saw the guy I coached win at so-and-so, if they get the buzz from seeing somebody else do something, they're going to be a good coach. And so that's why I like getting involved.
What sort of coaching? Are you talking football coaching?
No, I'm talking anything. I'm talking anything. You know, I do a lot of work with universities, working with, you know, they call it flipped classrooms and everything. It's actually a very just Socratic view in which you constantly asking the students to learn. You're constantly just saying, look, answer this question, go out and find this out. And your skill revolves around designing a task where, in a sense, the student can't help but go all around. So, for example, I never deliver a reading list. And you go, why would I give you a reading list? I'm telling you what to read. You're just going to give me that back. No, go out and find. I'll give you a very quick instance. I'm sorry, but a very quick instance. Today, I'm in a class today. In the class, we've got 30 people in the class. We've got 2 Olympic champions. We've got Beth Tweddle in there in the class. We've got 2 Aviva Rugby League players. We've got professional footballers. They're all in their 30s and all that. And I didn't give them any reading lists. And today we got all their assignments in, and I took all the references that they'd used in the assignments. And from the group of 30 people, there were 230 separate references. All right? So that group have now created a 230-wide reading list that they can share with each other. What would have happened if I'd have given a reading list with 4 books in it? They'd have read the 4 books, they'd have all answered the assignment in the same way. I'm bored to death at answering 30, they're all identical. So basically it's not for their good, it's for, you know, just so I can enjoy myself. And I'm sorry about that, but you got me going there.
But let me ask the question again.
Okay, yeah. What was the question?
Views on the strength-based revolution.
Oh, yeah, you know I don't really agree with it.
I know you don't.
Okay, so we've been rowing about this for ages.
So when I wrote Spike, I got the person who, a bit of a mentor, to say, could you write the foreword for me and give it a review? He says, I totally disagree with the premise. That makes you the perfect person to write the foreword. So why?
Because I think you do need to work on things that you're weak at as well. You need to be able to understand what you're great at, and I get that, and that's where I think we're in the wrong jobs. That's where I think, you know, you get in the wrong jobs. But when you're trying to assess yourself, you have to be real. You have to be honest with yourself and say, actually, I'm really not really good at that, and I should be a little bit better than that if I want to do X, Y, and Z. But the key to it is that I think, me personally, I think I'm okay. If I'm great at anything, it's being okay at everything. You know, I'm okay at everything. I can get by with it. I can, you know, put me in the team. Put me in a team. I used to play semi-professional and professional football, but it was low level, 3rd division and that. If you put me in a Premier League side, I'd be okay. I'd get away with it. I'd be all right, but I wouldn't be the star. I wouldn't be that guy. And my thing with football was always to be the worst player in the best team. I wanted everybody else to be great around me, to feed off that.
But isn't that your Spike?
Yeah, if you want to call it a spike, yeah, fine. You know what I mean?
I'll move on now.
Yes, I think you
Thank
should.
you. So,
my work here is done.
no, Chris makes a good point. This is the biggest debate. What do you do with the things you're not so good at? And I would say be aware of them. What else?
Be aware of them and get them on the minimum viable level. And get over it and go do the things you're really good at.
So?
I think you two agree, actually.
What I would please, don't go there.
What I would say about the things that you're not very good at is that, okay, the way I put it is, we're all human, we've all got weaknesses. So be aware of what your weaknesses are, and you need to find ways to mitigate them. So, for example, I was coaching somebody who they hated being in the spotlight. They were the polar opposite of you. Hated going, avoided events, avoided speaking. When she went through all of her strengths, what she realised was one of her key motivators' strengths was she really wanted to make a difference. That gave her the drive and the desire to get on that stage. So it was a way of taking something that her story about herself was, I hate to do that, I'm not going to do that. She's okay at it, and actually she's more than okay at it because people can see the difference she wants to make. So I think we have to face them and we can work around them. The problem is when you're spending 80% of your time trying to work around them.
The leader. There was a time when the leader would solve every problem, kick off every initiative. I'm not convinced that's feasible today. In a world that's so fast-moving, market is so unforgiving, disruptive, complex technology everywhere, is it really feasible anymore for the leader to be able to answer every question? I doubt it. How do we compensate for the fact that the leader may not be good at everything? What have you seen work that helps that leader still deliver, even though they may not know the answer to everything, they may not be able to kick off every initiative?
In essence, it's the story Crystal tells. It's about getting the team better. So a great leader gets all his people better. But then he has to know what they are good at. So find their spikes, find their weak spots, and fit it in the team.
So in other words, it's not just about one person. But doesn't that leader need a different sort of self-awareness?
I think so.
Well, I think the whole notion of strengths is a mindset shift. And I think, culturally, but also primitively, we are, as human beings, we are built to notice risks in our environment. We are built to notice what's wrong so we can guard against it. So we've got that to deal with and fight against. And then we've got the cultural, especially British culture, we tend to be very modest. But what I've seen with leaders is when they start working with strengths, whether it's introducing strengths-based recruitment or development, they get that shift really quickly. And if you can indulge me, my short story on that is we profiled Great Ward Sisters in the top 10 NHS trusts. And I was going in front of thousands of matrons when we got the profile, talking to them about these are the things that Great Ward Sisters have in common, these are the strengths of a Great Ward Sister. I went to one session one day and there was a woman at the back who was scary and really cynical, really challenging, really worried about this. She wanted to make sure she got Great Ward Sisters and she'd never heard of this before. So she was scared, worried. About a year later, I had to go into this trust and present to the exec committee, these are the results of doing this project. There was me, the chief nurse, a couple of ward sisters, and they'd opened up the meeting and invited anybody that wanted to come. And we're also on the stage like this. It was all filling up, and I saw the woman coming at the back, and I was thinking, oh God, I wonder what she's going to say. At the end, everyone was filing out, and she came right up to me and she said, Sally, can I give you a hug? And I said, why? She said, this has made such a difference to my team and to my patients. I now know what a Great Ward Sister is good at, what motivates them, what their values are. And she totally She totally changed her mindset to work with people's strengths instead of what they weren't very good at.
Very nice, very nice. Chris, you wrote a really interesting line in the book. That was you. Yes, you did.
Absolutely. I remember that. Carry on.
And it was...
Just remind the audience.
Spike is not about getting you the best job, it's getting you the right job. Build on that.
I just think you, mostly by accident, we sort of end up sometimes in the right job and the wrong job. But we also have to understand, which is the other debate we had when Rene was writing the book, is that, you know, I left school at like 15. I went into a job. Now, in those days, what was really interesting was, you know, when you talk back and you go, in the old days, this used to happen, and I get that. I'm an old bloke, I get that. So let's move on from that. But the key thing was, the most important thing to you when you're 15 years old as a boy in East London was to go out and earn money to bring home to your mum and say, there you go, I'm contributing to that. That's what you wanted to do. You didn't want to go to university, you didn't want to do anything else. You wanted to earn and give your mum some money to say, like, I'm a man now. I'm contributing. I'm actually doing that sort of thing. So you just went out and got a job. So I can remember leaving school on the Friday afternoon, and our English teacher, the whole of the final year, our English teacher, every English lesson was writing a job application. Every single lesson for a year was writing a job application out. Dear sir, with reference to your advertisement in the Evening Standard on Thursday, I can recite it all now. And eventually they answered and said, yeah, we'll take you and we'll do this and we'll do that. Right, one's taken me. I didn't know what the job was. I have a clue. It's in the Minories. I'm going into the city. And what am I doing? I'm a what? I'm an insurance clerk. Excellent. All right, I'll give it a go. So the idea of planning. So when students say to me, you know, how did your career go? I have no idea how I got here. You know, it's no good asking me. I had jobs, and to a certain extent, it presaged where we are now. You know, so at the time, I was just getting job after job after job, whereas everybody else was getting, you know, was setting on careers. And what's really interesting, we had the 50th anniversary of our graduation. By the way, it's a grand word for our school, but and in those days there were 48 people in our class. So, you know, when people talk about, you know, a class size of 25, yeah, right, good luck with that. There was 48 of us in the class. We had a 50th anniversary. People came from all over the world. Really interesting, 40 people were still alive as a result. 35 of them turned up for a school reunion after 50 years. And interestingly, a lot of them were very successful. None of them were in what we would call a professional job. There were no accountants, there were no lawyers, there were no doctors, nothing, because they hadn't gone down that route. They hadn't gone, well, let's go and do an A-level, let's go to university, I'm going to be a professional. So the interesting thing was that those 35 kids from basically what was in those days called a secondary school, which was, you know, a sink school, we'd call it nowadays, 35 of those kids turned up 50 years later. They'd all been successful in, you know, one guy came in, hey, Roger, how are you? What are you up to? He said, oh, I'm the editor of the Barbados Times or something, you know. You are? How did that happen? You know, you were the snotty kid at the back of the class. So how'd you get there? You know, and somehow or another, they'd worked their way through jobs until something had triggered and they go, that's the job I want over there. I've seen somebody else do it. You know, so this idea of role models, you know, for me, Martin Luther King is the greatest role model of all. You know, okay, what does he want me to do? He's my role model. He's my. What does he want me to do?
I'm going to pause you there because Chris has said something really interesting.
Whoa.
Again, in the past, given his vintage, they eventually found their spike. How has times changed today that we can accelerate that? What is it that's changed that we can now, if we look at our audience, we're a little bit more informed, a little bit more disappointed when we don't get there, but we sort of have a feeling of where we want to get. What has changed?
I think a big part awareness of being able to find your purpose and fulfill it at some point in your life. But if I go to the younger people, they have a hard time finding their choices, their way in life, and finding what they can be good at. And
even though they're better educated, better
yeah,
travel,
but the expectations are high.
Okay, very good.
To some level.
Very good.
That's a good point.
So we meet expectations, which in our
That's
times,
a good point.
they were not that big. We wanted to earn money, or we wanted to do this, but that's more of a driver outside. And now we're trying to look inside on our drivers in a very early stage. So it's a difficult one. And then we tend to look at the negative side more, as you started the conversation this evening, instead of the possibilities. And that's a shame.
I think it depends on, you know, the social environment that you grow up in. I think there are an awful lot of people who still have low expectations, who are from deprived areas, who maybe haven't got the support of their families, haven't got anybody who cares for them. And we've worked with carers in the care sector, with baristas in Starbucks, with people who are earning minimum wage. And some of these people that I've spoken to have come from families where generations of people haven't worked and have no expectations of them. In fact, I was interviewing a stockbroker, and he was saying, "This is very interesting, Saliola, but surely it's for the privileged elite." And I said, absolutely not. This is for any human being who wants to be energized by what they do and to do something that fulfills them, whether it's a stockbroker or a lawyer or somebody who's a carer. And for me, one of the things that excites me about this work is what it can do for disadvantaged groups, for people for whom social mobility was not an option. And one of the reasons I wrote this book is to try and get the message to people who aren't lucky enough to work in these organisations that all of us are working in.
Very good.
I think where we do agree, I think Sally might be right, maybe we agree more than we think we do. Where we do agree is we both do work with the Amos bursary, you know, with black boys in the East End, and I do believe genuinely, and this makes you a good coach for 95% of the people, by the way, and a bad coach for about 5%, but I do believe anybody can do anything. And so there's a great line in a movie you should watch about confidence tricksters, but it's really important if you're in this sort of role. And the line is the guy's a confidence trickster, and a psychologist is talking to him to try and work out how confidence tricks work. How does that work? And the guy says, well, it's easy. He said, I'm going to show you how it works, but the key to it is, he said, why do they call it a confidence trick? Because you give me your confidence? No, because I give you mine. And the great coaches in the world, the great teachers, give you the confidence to be able to, of course you can do this. You know, now, unfortunately, if you get that tiny 5% who can't do it, I'm a nightmare. Of course you can do it. Stop buggering about. Of course you can do it, you know. And actually that poor one guy or one girl can't do it, so I'm the nightmare. But most people are like, and you know, faculty friends of mine will say, why don't the students turn up in your class? I said, because I go around the cafe and we'll find them and go, oi, get in the class. And the students go, yeah, okay. They don't fight you, they want to be there, but they want leading. They want somebody to go.
Say, it's very difficult to escape the expectations of a teacher in terms of performance. If the teacher thinks you're going to deliver, you probably...
Yeah, well, the research shows all that, doesn't it? The research is very strong on that.
So let me pick up a very contemporary challenge from the last 48 hours. We've just announced a new coach for the England women's football team. Someone who's never actually managed.
Conflict of interest here, I'm just stating. Phil Neville's a friend of mine. Carry on.
He's never actually managed and never worked in the women's game.
Correct.
There's a whole bunch of people who might say that there's a lot of people who are better qualified and better positioned to have got that job. Did we see the strengths of all the candidates, or did we see what they didn't have?
I think the candidate, because I know something about this. First of all, the candidates, a lot of the candidates withdrew. When the Football Association said we're going to do quite a strong background checks here, I mean, I know one guy, for example, who had been having a relationship with one of the players, immediately pulled out because he didn't want that to be known. Emma Hayes, who was actually my choice, the Chelsea, she was my choice. She was on a course that I ran, and she was excellent. And I actually recommended her for some men's teams. But they basically all just said, we're not having a woman. But she was really good. She pulled out as well because of the way the previous coach was treated. So there was a lot of that going on. But when we talk about Phil Neville, we're sort of only talking about Phil Neville now because of the tweets and all that sort of. I know it was like, well, he hasn't worked in a women's game, but my position on that is, listen, we've been belly aching all the time saying the women's game is as good as the men's game. What does it matter if he's not worked in a women's game? They're footballers, you know. So either you're going to have.
Wasn't this less about Philip Neville, and more about having the most inclusive, diverse array of candidates? And what message does it give to
they interviewed 8 candidates.
Yeah, but I don't care about that. What message does it give to all those women who would aspire to get to the top of their game?
It means they ain't as good as him.
But how?
Well, I don't know. We didn't do it. I know Phil's a really good coach. I know he's a very strong coach. He's got a very good. He's got a very good process.
Peter, I'm going to come to you because you're a bit conflicted here.
I'm saying, would I have appointed Phil Neville? No, I'd have appointed Emma Hayes because I think she's a better coach and a better manager than Phil Neville. But on that basis alone, not because she's a woman, I don't care.
I think the point I'm making is very different to that.
Excellent. Carry on with that point.
You're sending a message out to all those women to say, we're so bereft of talent, we've had to find a man.
That's not the message I think.
That's the message I felt.
Okay, maybe in the conversation, the women in the audience can say whether they feel that's true.
I can hear the emotional alignment.
Can you?
Yes.
Can you?
I can feel that. I can feel that so strong.
We've sort of moved into the area.
Sally.
What's your question?
The question is, what's your view?
Of what?
Having the manager of the national team, the most successful European national team, that predecessor was male.
By the way, that's wrong as well. Carry on.
Well, they won the Champions League.
No, they didn't.
To now say that we're going to appoint a man to the women's game. Views?
I think the question is, what will make a fantastic coach? And it would be astonishing to me to think that the strengths, values and motivations of a fantastic coach couldn't be found in numerous women out there. You know, how many football coaches are men versus
what in the women's game?
How many women football coaches are there?
In the Women's Premier League, there are only 3 women managing teams in the Women's Premier League. There are no women managing in the Men's League at all. 0.
Opportunity knocks.
Yeah.
Opportunity knocks. Peter?
It shouldn't be a discussion in the first place, because it's kind of ridicule that we make a difference between the male or the female side in this, because it's about the best candidate, and there's this kind of value bit on the male side or female side. But what's the team in need of? What type of coach? And the decision has to be made, what's the best coach? And it can be all. But the fact that we have a problem in that is because the society is biased on the male, the gender issue. It's just strange.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Because Chris's point is a great one. Only 3 female coaches in the top league.
Here's a question for you then. Supposing they'd have said, we've appointed as the manager of the England women's team, Pep Guardiola. Anybody going to go?
We've had Fabio Capello makes...
No, the women's
team. Oh, sorry.
The women's team. We've appointed Pep Guardiola.
I would still say to you, Chris, where are the women that can do this job?
Well, you can look up, say, if somebody said to me, we've appointed Pat Summitt, notwithstanding the fact she's dead, but that's a whole other issue. That's a whole other issue. Well, if they'd have said we've appointed Pat Summitt and she's taken the job, I think that's a coup. That's a PR coup. But she was one of the greatest basketball coaches in history. predominantly coaching women's basketball, but recognised as a great basketball coach, not a great women's but she predominantly worked in that area. She got offered loads of jobs in the men's league because she was such a great coach. Now, if somebody said, actually, we're going after Pat Summitt, everybody would go, well, she's not a football coach, but she's a great coach, and she would have been a great coach for the women's football team as well. So, in a sense, I agree with Peter. The debate has sort of divided in the wrong conversation. At the moment,
but Peter said, I think what Peter said, and I'll take this point, it reflects the challenges we're facing in society.
Yeah, but the point is, are we trying to elevate women's football? Answer yes, I'm assuming.
Yes, without a doubt.
Is it better to have a celebrity, really well-known, really well-connected man to bring that up until such time? Now, if you're being very strategic about it, it might be a really great strategic decision to have that guy in there. If you're saying that actually we want them to be run by a woman, and by the way, all the women in the team have said we don't care whether it's a man or a woman. We're okay with him.
But if we go back to your point, if you took Pep Guardiola, everyone would say what a fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're taking Phil Neville.
Well, Phil Neville.
So let me move this on.
Okay.
Because I want the audience to come back to this in the second part. And what I'd really like you to think about is from where you sit, and you think about the challenges that we face as a society as we try to change social mobility. What sort of role models do we need? How do we really focus on people's strengths and not what they're not so good at? How do we change our world with that? I'd like to push you for some stories of change. Where you've seen an organisation, a team or an individual radically change and change just about everything by moving from focusing on weaknesses to perhaps a focus on strengths. So.
Okay, so I'll take you back to 5 years ago. I met a guy who was a director in a financial services organisation. Never forget the first meeting. We were in a big glass office, and this guy, very nice guy, he was desperate. His staff turnover was 65%. His customer complaints were going up. His team was fed up, and you could feel it when you walked around the office. And he said to me, we have tried everything to try and change this, and nothing's worked. I doubt very much whether your strengths-based thing can do this, but I'll give you a chance, and if you can make a change, I'll be forever in your debt. So we introduced strengths-based selection into this place, and within 6 months, his staff turnover had halved. And today, 5 years on, it stands at 17%. 65 to 17%. Fantastic result. It put millions on his bottom line. He was delighted, and he is forever in my debt. But the thing that really got me in a very powerful way was when you walk into that office now, you can feel the buzz of people who love what they do and who are doing jobs that are right for them. And it's palpable, and that's why they say cultures change very quickly when you introduce strengths. It's like setting off a positive virus.
Peter?
Yeah, a lot of stories pop into mind, but the one most on top of my mind is a guy who had his own company, his own development company, was making kind of a Facebook type of social media platform. And I was talking to him for the first time because I wanted to hook into his business with our scan. And I was telling him about the scan, and he looked at me and said, I know what you're saying, and I'm not doing the best things I can do. No, I don't think it's not a real fit. And he stepped out of the room, literally, went to his colleague, broke up his company, came back, so let's talk what I want to do. And he made the switch to a social company which he does a number of international projects. And he did it in 3 weeks' time, simply because his purpose was much clearer. And he made a very rigorous choice, which scared me because I told him something and he blew up his company. But he was quite comfortable with that because in the end people know their strengths somewhere. And getting a more concise image of that or a more objective image of that, it helps them to make their choices.
So talk me through how your scan works. What is it you look for? How does it operate? And what do you end up with?
Okay, our scan is a bit typical. It's a bit different as opposed to other scans in the market. Normally a scan consists of questions or it questions your strength, and it helps you to really value your behavior. However, that's looking on the inside, I call it. So it helps you to get a clear picture of what you do. Our scan uses, besides the questionnaire side, images which directly appeal to your subconscious mind. It helps you to really find, hey, this is what I do like as an energy or a behavioral zone, and which is not. And we combine the questions we ask with the image choice we let people make, and that combination really shows, hey, this is something, a behavioral area which I can be good at. Hey, I developed it because I choose the competencies belonging to it. So that's natural strength. It's really something you can build on. And if you got the confidence, you'll develop that very quickly. There are also areas where you have the image, as I call it, positively, but you don't choose competency. So that's a talent. But more important maybe is that sometimes you learn behavior, which is adapted, which we call fragile. It's a strength, but it will go away under pressure. And the combination makes that people can easily choose a strategy to deliver some behavior which fits more into their strength. It's fast. It's 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Some people do it in 5. And it gives a direct possibility for a conversation. And a few people in the audience did the scan, and we saw some comments. And it's fun because it's a positive one.
So Peter walks into our offices with me and my team in there. He says, Rene, can we have a private room so I can do a quick scan? He said, no, you don't need to be prissy. There's nothing about me that my team don't know or hate. So let's just do this in public. So we sat down in public with the team around me and gave me the choices, where to choose, put them. It's about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang,
and
bang,
you're
bang,
fast. Bang. You're very fast.
But bang, bang, because the amount of feedback I get on a regular basis. So and then he talked through who he thought I was based on that. How I behave, what choice I made, in front of my team. And unhelpfully, my son was there as well, which is really unhelpful. There was no hiding place, but he nailed it. It wasn't 80-20, it was 95-5. Scarily.
Did I miss something?
The obvious. But what was really interesting about it also, he then did my team, but without me in the room. Which is important. And he nailed every one of them. And I mean, they're all here today. He nailed every one of them. And what was interesting, I had a conversation with them all later about how did it make them feel. Not what did they think, how did it make them feel. Everyone was energised just through the process. And Sally, that makes sense to you, doesn't it? Everyone gets energised when an environment where people catch you doing things right. And it was amazing to me what it left the team with. A buzz. And there was a bit of legitimisation in there, if that makes sense. That makes sense to you, Sally?
Yeah, you can see the difference in people. I mean, what we often find is people are a bit modest and they're like, oh, isn't everybody like this? No, but you are and you're great. So it's a confidence builder. And, you know, we work quite a lot with people with disabilities and different conditions and people who've always had a negative story about lack and what they're not very good at, and it's wonderful because everybody has got strengths, obviously. So yeah, it's a game changer for people.
So we're going to take a break. I want you to think about your questions. What we've heard is that everyone in this room is as unique as their fingerprints, and everyone in this room has a standout strength, at least one. What I'd like you to think about during the break and have the chance to talk to our esteemed panel here is, what's your burning issue? What's your burning challenge? Maybe just for you, maybe for those who work around you, maybe for the team, maybe the organisation. It's going to be very rare that you get such an esteemed panel to ask the questions of. We're going to serve some drinks, refreshments, some food outside, and remember what I said. A one-off chance, limited edition, outside. Please join me in giving my panel a fantastic round of applause. See you back in 20 minutes, please. Excellent. Well done. Thank you.
Bullshit. Here's the question, right?